Hello, Algebra. How are you? We're going to start the next section, and the next section is all about change. More specifically, it's about the rate of change. And the rate of change helps us to find what a graph looks like. So we represent rate of change, or change of y over change of x, like this. So we are always going to have change of y over change of x. This little triangle means change of, and we are going to look at rate of change in two separate ways. We're going to look at it on a table, and we're going to look at it on a graph. So as we are doing this, let's start with a table. So when I am looking at this table here, I need to look at the change going from one level to the next level, okay? And I am always going to look at it as far as the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so change in y over change in x. You're going to want to write that down each time. So what does that mean? Well, what is the difference between here and here? How did I get from 78 to 156? Probably the easiest way to do that is subtract 156 from 78. What did you do to get there? I added 78, okay? And to get to from 156 to 234, you'd have to add 78 again. You're looking at each step. Notice how I looked at the first to the second and then the second to the third. You need to have arrows for each step. Now what about my change in x? My change in x from 2 to 4 is, again, going up 2. And from 4 to 6 is also going up 2. So how do I write that as a rate of change? Well, I'm going to do that as a fraction, and I'm always going to reduce it. So I'm going to write down change in y over change in x. Then I'm going to put my numbers in the right spots. So my 78 goes here. 78 divided by 2. I want to reduce that fraction. Can I divide 78 by 2? I sure can. I get 39. And so now I need to look at what that means. And I use my values for that, or my labels for that. So my x value is the number of computer games. And there's one computer game in this situation. And what does one computer game cost? $39. So each computer game costs $39. Okay, I would like you to do your rate of change for number 2. What is your change at each step going down? What is your change going on each step here? If it's positive, we put a plus sign in front of it. It's a negative change, we put a minus sign in front of it. Okay, so come with that part done to class. Okay, let's look at table number 3. So table number 3 is talking about the price of oil. And the price of oil is changing, okay, over each month. So my months is plus 1. 1 to 2 is plus 1, okay. What about this change here? $94.44 to $94.57. That's an increase. So it's plus, how much? 13 cents, so 0.13, okay? What about from 2 to 3? 2 to 3 is a one-step change, so that's going to be plus 1 going down all the way. But look here, from 94.57 to 94.44, that is a negative 13 cents. And then the change is a negative 18 cents and 26. Can you figure out the next one, please? Okay, I'm hoping you figured out that that change was 50 cents. Is this rate of change the same going all the way down? It's not. And since it's not, This, my friends, is not a line. And so that's super important concept to understand. An equation is only linear or forms a line if my rate of change is constant. So in example number 3, it wasn't the same in each step, so that's not a line. All right, let's look at a little bit different item. We're going to look at how do we decide this on a graph. You will notice on this graph that there's a point right here on the graph, and there's a point right here. Is this change constant? Is this a line? Sure is. So I can figure out this rate of change. I can figure out my change in y over my change in x. I'm going to do that on a graph by just counting the number of blocks. So if I go up from this one to the next level where the next point is, I need to look at how far I went up. So 1 to 2 is +1. Be careful and look at your scale when you're doing this. So that's my change in y. It was +1. Okay. Now I have to look at my change in x. I went from 2 to 4. So I went up +2. Okay. So with that said, what are my units? Well, this is dollars and this is newspapers. So for every 2 newspapers, I make $1. For every 2 newspapers, I make $1. Okay, so here's the deal. This one doesn't have dots on it. Can I put dots on it? Yep, you can. You have to look at where the line goes straight through the x and the y at an integer. So this integer right here, if I had a dot here, if I had another line here, and this dot would be here, this integer would be at 3, 40, right? I could graph this to 3 and then up to 40. Whoops, I erased it. That's okay. All right, so that's important. All right, so let's see, there's a dot right here. And then I go down, and there's a dot right there. So each of these goes down by each box, but is each box worth 1 in this case? It's not. Okay, so this is a down graph. My change in y over my change in x is down, so I better indicate that my change in y is down. Okay, so how far down is it from one dot to the next? 280 to 240. How many pieces down did I go? I went down 40. All right. And then how many did I go across? Let's see. From 1 to 2 is 1. And then what are my units? -40 pages in 1 hour. So this person read 40 pages in 1 hour. Okay? So graphs represent things, and we need to know what they represent. Now, did that same rate continue? 240 to 200 is -40, and this is 1. And then it would be -40 and 1 going all the way down. Did it continue over here? It sure did, because it's a line. From 2 to 3 is +1. From 4 to 6 is +2. So I need to look at that and make sure. When I'm talking about my steepness, I'm talking about slope. Similarly to skiing down a slope, when I'm looking at slope, I'm looking at my rate of change, always defines steepness. And there are 4 different types of slope. There's positive slopes, and positive slopes are uphill graphs. So you're starting right. You're reading left to right, and if I were riding a bike, I would be going up a hill, right? Or I'd be on the chairlift on a ski hill. Here I would be skiing down the hill, or I would be riding my bike down the hill, so that would be a negative graph. If there's no change at all, my rate of change would be 0, and if I can't figure out the change, it would be undefined. So horizontal is 0, and vertical is undefined. So let's talk about how to find slope. Slope is defined as m, so this is my slope formula. And my slope formula is when I have 2 points, I know what they are as an ordered pair, but not on a graph. I'm going to look at my change in my y values over my change in my x values. And I find that by finding the difference, right? So let's look a little bit more closely on what that means. So if I've got these 2 points in number 6, I'm looking at number of weeks and earnings, and I want to figure out what my slope is. My best and safest way to do that is to label x1, y1, because this is the x value of the first point and the y value of the first point. And this is your x2, x value of the second point, and your y2. So after I label those, then I can take my slope formula, remember m stands for slope, and I can plug my numbers in and I can check out an answer. The thing is you need to be very careful for a couple of things. This is always a minus sign in between the y2 and the y1. Whoops. And it's always a minus sign in between the x2 and the x1. And if my x value or y value is negative, I have to put that negative in and change it. All right, let's see. If I look at y2 as 5, right? Whoops. y2 is 5. I don't know how to get rid of that when it jumps like that. I can't do it. And y1 is 0. So I've got 5 minus 0. Fantastic. And then my x2 is 1 and my x1 is negative 2. So I'm going to put 1 minus negative 2, and I'm going to change it to plus plus. Whoops, 1 minus negative 2, which changes to plus plus. And so I get 5 over 3. Okay, just do the math. 5 minus 0 is 5. 1 plus 2 is 3. So in every 3 weeks, I make $5. Okay, this must be for chores. Let's look at number 7. Again, you're going to want to label your x1, y1. You're going to want to do that until you're really good at this. x2, y2. So I want to see that on your paper. And then you're going to write down your formula. Make sure your formula is written down. You have to memorize this. You're going to use it the rest of your high school and college career. You may even use it when you're working, because if you work at anything that has to do with any type of steepness, you're going to have to figure that steepness out, okay? And so, what's my y2? It's negative 1. And my y1 is negative 1. So it's going to be negative 1 minus negative 1, which will turn to plus plus, which will be 0. And then x2 is 2, and minus negative 3. Make sure you put your negative in there, and then make it plus plus. And that will add to 5. And 0 over 5 weeks is how much you get paid for your chores that you're supposed to do because you're a contributing factor in your house. Please do that. Your parents will love you. Okay, number 8, x1, y1. Number x2, y2. Make sure you label that. Write down your formula and plug it in. Okay? After you write down your formula and plug it in, I want you to find this answer and do number 9 and come with number 9 done in class. God bless.